I am a big fan of stories about transformation. Um, and I've never been overweight. I've had my own struggles. My struggles were different. Everybody's got different struggles, of course,
You do.
but I would love to hear your story. It sounds like you lost a significant amount of weight, and I know that you are an ultra runner and you're currently training for Cocodona 250. So, I mean, talk about do big things. And I just wanted to hear the story.
Yeah, I mean, my life is full of extremes. So where do I begin? Yeah, so I mean, if you want to go back to the start, I was born and raised in Florida. From the outside, I probably had a normal childhood. I was in all kinds of sports as a kid. My mom was my Girl Scout leader. I played tennis, soccer, you name it. But under the surface, I had a very, I guess, non-traditional upbringing. My dad was an alcoholic my entire life. I had a sister who was always rebellious, so I always looked at her and I was like, well, I don't want to do that. So I was always the goody goody
Okay.
on the surface. And then my mom, who was my number one inspiration, she had a hell of a story too. She when she was 12 years old, she walked into the kitchen. Her stepdad shot her own mother in the head and then went into the backyard and shot himself in the mouth. So it was up to my mom to raise then her brother and sister in Mississippi. So when I
Whoa.
say that I'm a strong woman, I get it from her because I mean, she's been through the ringer and back. So having her as a mother and really the anchor in my life has really shaped me into the person I am. So yeah, I could go
Wow.
on.
No kidding.
When it comes to family stories, I could, how long do you have?
We've got all day. I love this stuff.
Yeah. So
How did your mom adapt after something like that? I mean, that is tragic. That's
yeah.
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 How does one go on?
She took her sister and brother and lived with who I grew up thinking was my grandfather. Turns out he was more of just like a family friend in Mississippi. And then the story continues. My mom, helped raise the kids there, and she never told anyone, but he sexually molested her until she was who knows how old. But when she turned 18, she was able to get out, escape, go to college, and start her own family, my sister and me. And become the person who she is now. But yeah, she, just persevered and kept on, kind of like we all do in ultra running,
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
are tough times in life, but you find the courage and the strength to keep going.
Yeah.
So
That's
whenever I'm in a tough moment in a race or training, any day life, I think of that. I think, if she had the strength to continue, so do I.
yeah. Yeah. And your mom is still around?
She is, yeah. She is in Atlanta, Georgia, with her partner now. Her and her wife of I don't know how many years they've been together, forever, are now, this is another story, are now raising my sister's son, my nephew, two nephews, and my niece in Atlanta. They're both teachers, and yeah,
Nice.
having a blast in the Southeast.
And where are you calling in from geographically?
I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Arizona. Okay.
So when I say life full of extremes, one of them is, I was born and raised in Florida, and then I went to Chicago to start my career, and then I went to Arizona. So
Okay.
Siberia, as we call it in Chicago, I think their lowest temperature this year may have been like -12, which is typical. And then
Yes.
our highest here this past summer was like 118, I want to say. So
That's extreme.
I would much rather be in the heat than the cold.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah.
I am from the Chicago area too. I lived up in Wisconsin, about an hour and a half away from Chicago. So, and I took a peek at your ultra sign up, and it looks like you did the Ice Age 50. So I'm guessing that would explain why you did that race, because you were
Yep.
living in the area.
Oh yeah, I was living in the area at the time. And to me at the time, that was a tough race because my training was, pancake flat Chicago, where your hills are man-made stairs. So very different terrain than the Ice Age Trail, the Kettle Moraine Park.
Yeah, big time. Well, some of my first ultras were there, so I'm very familiar with the area, and yeah, love that place.
It is a great place.
The reason I asked about your mom is I'm just curious now, like what she thinks about you going out and doing these crazy ultras. I mean, she must be super proud.
She is. At first, she was terrified for me, having, no idea what it really means to do an ultra. I think at first she was like, oh my gosh, like, how is it possible for you to be able to run 50 miles, 100 miles? I'm like, well, it's like fast hiking
Yeah.
sometimes. I was like, you're going slow. You're mosey. It all depends on who's racing. But for me, it's like, just get to the finish.
Yeah, totally.
But nowadays, we always talk on Saturday mornings after my run, and she'll just ask me, because she knows, she's like, how many miles today? And I'll say, 24. And she's like, all right.
Nice.
Whereas before she'd be like, oh my God, how did you do that? Now it's like, all right, next question.
Yeah, it's the norm now.
Yeah, yeah.
How about your father? Do you have a relationship with him?
Not a healthy one.
Okay.
Growing up, as a kid, I always looked up to him because he had such a cool job. Both my parents are from Mississippi, but he got a job with Disney World in Orlando as a landscape architect. So he got to design all of the crazy flowers and bushes shaped like the characters. And I mean, if you walk around Disney, you're not only mesmerized by the park, but you're mesmerized by every little detail, including the flowers. So that's definitely where I get my creativity from. I work in advertising on the creative side. But yeah, I always looked up to him. He was like the cool dad. We were always going boating or sea doing, or you name it, all the fun things. But as a kid, you don't realize that your dad is like drunk by 9 a.m. So
yeah.
It took me years once I grew up to figure out what was really going on. But yeah, it's a relationship where whenever we do talk, every month or 2 months, maybe, it's him just telling me about his life. He'll, ask me some questions about mine, but it's usually, what's going on in his own world. But you still love your parents no matter what. It's just a interesting relationship, I guess.
Yeah, I hear you. And then, so you said you played a lot of sports. What happened towards high school, after high school? Did you go on to college? Like, what happened then? And I'm guessing you weren't running at that point.
No.
Okay.
So I played a lot of sports growing up. My favorite were soccer. And it's funny, I like soccer because I could be the goalie and not have to run a lot. And I was good at soccer because I'm very tall. I'm 5'10", and I can kick the ball into the other goal. So I was always the goalie. And then I also got into rowing my first year of high school, and I got really good at it, to the point that I was being recruited to row with the girls team at Berkeley. And last minute took a hard right turn and went to art school in Savannah, Georgia. So I went to the Savannah College of Art and Design for 5 years. I got my master's there in advertising, design, and copywriting. So that's what I do now.
Okay. Copywriter.
Yeah. So I went to art school. And when I went to art school, I mean, sports was not even in the picture. And that's really where I lost all control of like my health. I gained who knows how much weight in college. It just got really unhealthy. I mean, I would eat fast food 4 times a day. It was bad. And then it just kind of continued on once I graduated and got an internship in Chicago. And it was when I moved to Chicago, you move to the big city and you have all these big dreams and big aspirations, because you think you made it. Like now it's like, what can I do now that I'm here? So a lot of my focus went into my career, and I, again, just completely lost control of health. That was on the back burner. But it was one day, and I tell people this all the time, because they'll ask, like, what was the switch that flipped? And for me, it was one day, one of my friends wanted to go to brunch, and they were like, oh, like it's just down the street, we can walk there. And in my head, I was like, there's no way I can walk to brunch. Like, it's too painful. No. And it was, like a mile away. And that was where I was like, you know what, I really need to make some sort of change. I'd also been hearing from my doctor, like, if you continue on this path, you're looking at an early death. And just hearing that, and then knowing this about walking a brunch, was kind of the switch that flipped and made me realize, like, I have to start making some changes. lo and behold, the extreme changes and style that would later come.
I'm all about extremes. I get it. I can
Same.
relate. Most ultra runners are.
Go big or go home.
Totally, totally. So when you were gaining weight, I'm just curious, were you just focused on your career and just not thinking about it? Or were you sad and going through things mentally as well?
I think it was just a matter of, it could have been a combo. You know, I was definitely focused on my career, and I mean, that was just blinding everything else in my life. But, you know, in the back of your mind, and when you're alone, it's when you realize like how lonely you are, or how sad you are, or how your life doesn't feel like you think it does on the inside. Like on the outside, I didn't look like who I felt like on the inside. On the inside, I still felt like that person I was as a kid when I played sports and I ran around and I had all this energy and I felt like Superwoman. But on the outside and in reality, I didn't feel like that person at all. And that dynamic of your inside not matching up with the person who you are on the outside, that just, you know, was the push that came to shove.
Yeah. So yeah, and then you couldn't walk down to brunch that day, and I'm sure that was sort of traumatizing. I mean, if that flipped the switch, that must have been a big deal for you. You must have really put some thought into that. Like, okay, now's the time. And like, how old were you at that time?
At that time, when was that? That was 2013, I think, because that's when I started getting into running. And that's when I went to Fleet Feet for the first time, and, you know, was fitted for my first shoe, the Nike Pegasus, which so many of us used to run in, or still do. It was lime green. I'll never forget that shoe. But that it was so traumatizing that's like what started making the changes. But I will say that, you know, the first things I started to do, and sure, there were tons of trial and error in all of this, but the first thing I did was just set out these small attainable goals that I could achieve to build momentum and positivity in this journey. And the first thing I did was started packing my lunch every day. Every meal was out, fast food or restaurant, whatever it was. But I started making my own lunch every day. It didn't have to necessarily be healthy, but it just had to be something that I made and was aware of every ingredient that went into it. Sure. So as soon as that became a habit, then I started incorporating other new habits, like started making my dinner, started having a healthier snack, started, you know, having lunch. And then once my diet became, you know, more locked in, that's when I started picking up exercising. And I picked up those shoes thinking that like I'm gonna run, but I first wanted to go to the gym just to like sweat doing something. It wasn't running, it was the elliptical machine. I remember that machine. I hated it so much. Like most people do on cardio machines, you're doing so much effort, but you're getting nowhere.
Right.
But I remember, you know, every time I would go to the gym and work out, just that feeling of sweating again, I felt like I was really accomplishing something. And, you know, just those endorphins going made me come back again and again. I forgot which day it was, but I remember I went out for my first run since I ran as a kid. It's been many years. And I was like, you know, just run around the block. And I remember running around the block and I had to stop a couple times because I was so winded and it hurt so much. My lungs were on fire. I was probably trying to go way too fast for what I should have been doing. But I kept, you know, attempting that block every chance I got until I could run the whole thing without stopping. And that's when, you know, you just start picking up more momentum and, you know, just making the goal even bigger. But I think like most beginner runners do, I added too much miles too quickly and I got a stress fracture in my knee, which I never hear of, but I remember it being so painful. So I couldn't run. I was doing other things at the gym at the time, but I finally healed from that and then decided I need to get back to running because running was always this thing that was so intimidating to me and something that I felt goofy or foolish doing in front of people because I remember thinking my form is totally not right. I probably look ridiculous, which is why I would only run in the early mornings or late at night when it was dark and no one could see me, which is probably so safe in Chicago. Or, you know, or at the gym when no one would be there. but I just kept at it and finally made half a mile into a mile into 2 miles, and picked it up and kept going.
Nice. Yeah. Well, it sounds like a pretty dramatic change.
Yeah.
So, like, where was your head at that time? Were you inspired by anybody else, or was this just your own fire inside of you?
I think this was my own fire inside of me,
Nice.
because for so many years I was just always the fat kid. And I was
Mm,
always the kid who didn't feel or didn't look like or couldn't do what the inside me thought I could do or thought that I had the potential to do. I also, like a lot of us, I read the Born to Run book, and just that idea of knowing that this is what your body's meant to do and I can't do it was the motivation to conquer that and prove that wrong, or prove it right that I could. And once I finally did, and the feelings of this is agony to this is joyful took over and replaced those, like, just the pain of running as a newbie, I just kept going.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm guessing that there's a lot of people that can relate to that. I want to start running, I want to lose weight, but I don't really want people to see me doing this. Like, I would rather run at night or in a gym when nobody's there. And I'm just
Exactly.
imagining, like, feeling sort of shameful and embarrassed. And that's gotta be a rough feeling. But as a runner who hasn't really struggled with weight, like I said, I've had my struggles, believe me.
Mhm.
But when I see someone overweight running, I'm just like, yes, like I should run over and high five this person. Or,
Right.
I love being passed on the trail by a woman. I'm just like,
Hmm.
yeah, you go, girl. Like, I just
Oh, I
love
love it.
that stuff. And I
Hmm.
feel bad when, they're embarrassed about that. And it's a hang up for them, but I'm sure it's common.
It's so common. I mean, you see that meme all the time of, like, what I feel like I look like on the outside, but what I actually look like running. It's like we all feel like that. We all feel goofy, especially when you get, a terrible race photo back. You're like, oh my God, is that what I look like all the time? So it's not
Yeah.
helping, but we're all feeling, just self-conscious about ourselves. But
Yeah.
that's even more reason to just be like, who cares, and just do it anyway. Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. That's
Yeah.
something that I remind myself constantly nowadays, is like, we're all a blip on this floating rock in outer space. Nothing matters. Just go after it.
Totally. Do big things. Life is short. Like,
Yep.
yeah. And everyone's really just worried about themselves. Everyone's stuck in their own head. No one's like, if you're overweight and you're worried about running in public, like,
No.
no one really cares.
Mhm.
You know,
No,
I say
I'm the
go
same
for it.
way. When I see those people, I just wanna, like, high five them, or
Yeah.
if I'm close to them, I tell them, like, "Good job."
Yeah.
Like, I'm also the person who's like, if I see someone who's overweight and obviously struggling, but they're still going after it, I wanna be like, "I was once you. You could
Yeah.
do this. Like, you're doing awesome." But I don't wanna, like, I don't wanna talk to them. I don't wanna mess up their workout.
Right. Right. Well, that's what podcasts are for. So you don't have to stop people on the trail and say, hey.
Exactly.
So ultra marathons were on your radar rather early then, it sounds like, if you read Born to Run almost right away.
Sort of. I I probably didn't take the most common running path. My first race ever was the Chicago Marathon in 2016. And I always say, like, I remember standing in the corral, putting my bib on, and I was like, I don't know if I would have this on right. And I'm standing there in, like, a major marathon event. But the Chicago Marathon will always have a special place in my heart because of that. And I've run it a handful of times now. It's such a great race. Um, but yeah.
Well, tell me about that first marathon. Had you lost weight by that point? Were you still
Mhm.
struggling? And what was your training like leading up? I mean, like, my first marathon, I trained for it like I was going to war, like,
Yeah.
I don't,
This
and
is
now I
it.
look back and I'm like, oh, gee, it's ridiculous. But
No. Yeah, so I got into the Chicago Marathon through Paws, which is a no-kill animal shelter in Chicago. It's the largest one there. And every year they have a team with entries into the race. So I'm not someone who likes to, join group runs. For one, the reason I still feel weird seeing people see me run, I feel like I'm not doing it right. I'm still that person. And also, I like to stop whenever I want to stop. I want to go wherever I want to go. But it was still great being a part of that team because, you got all the resources and a training plan and guidance, and you just had that peace of mind going into it with a group, and you got to wear a singlet and it was, branded and you felt cool.
Yeah.
So my training plan was picked out of Hal Higdon's book, like a lot of people do. I picked his beginner's marathon training plan and I stuck to it. Oh, to the T. Like if I had to run 12 miles that day, I was running 12 miles that day.
Nice.
But nowadays it's like, things were done out there.
Yeah. But at first, like that's how you build your confidence. When you get to the start line, you did all the workouts, so you should be good, rather than going to the start line with some doubts in your head. Like, I did skip about a third of those workouts. And then it's like, I don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly. It's kind of, it's something that you just got to do your first time around, is like stick to it as much as you can, as best you can. Because at the end of the day, it is that peace of mind that's going to just make you, just a little more psyched up for your race versus having every single worry in the world cross your mind in the corral. Yeah. So I'm glad that I did that. And it was probably right after Chicago. I remember reading a Runner's World magazine. I heard or read something about the Western States 100. And I was like, there's no effing way people are running 100 miles in the woods. But then I started looking up ultras in Chicago and I was like, maybe. Yeah. And it was the next year I ran Chicago as a training run, which was fun to tell people. They were like, are you serious?
Right.
Because my 50-mile run was like a month later. Okay. And then it just snowballed downhill after that.
Yeah. And had you lost a significant amount of weight before the Chicago Marathon? Yes.
I want to say I hit the 200 pounds lost maybe like a month before the race.
200 pounds lost. Mm-hmm. That is insane.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Whenever I think back, I'll never forget looking at the scale and seeing 377. And I was just like, that's not real.
Wow.
It is.
Yeah.
Pictures to prove it.
Wow. Unreal. So, I mean, what a huge accomplishment. 200 pounds. I mean, you must have felt like a completely different person.
Oh, 100%.
100%.
Yeah. I'll never forget losing, the first 10 pounds and thinking that I was already on a roll. And then nowadays it's like, just the surface. But yeah, I mean, and I won't say that my personality changed, but I'll say my entire life changed. Things that were important to me back then are important to me now. My perspective on life and what it means to make a day matter and make it count is totally different. In the beginning, like if I wanted to make a day matter, it was like work and then go to happy hour and then go out and then go to a restaurant, eat all the things, be hungover the next morning. And now it's like, I get up, I have a great run of like 20 miles and then I work and then I take my dog on a hike and go to bed by 8 p.m., 7:30.
Yeah.
Up by 4 or 5 a.m. the next day. So totally different life.
Totally different life. And I'm guessing you don't have to worry about what you're eating nowadays. Like, I'm guessing that your diet changed a lot. And with all this activity, like it's just almost a new life. Like, but I don't know, is weight a struggle?
It always will be. I think for someone, and I put into this perspective, for someone who struggled with an addiction to food, that mindset, that craving, those thoughts still cross my mind nowadays. It's like, someone who struggles with like alcohol abuse or addiction to drugs, it's probably a lot better for them to not be around it because it's not going to be top of mind. Though I'm sure that those, thoughts and cravings or whatnot still crosses their mind. That's still a battle for them every day. What's really hard about someone who's struggled with addiction to food, you can't avoid that.
Right.
You have to eat.
You still have
to be around that addiction every day, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times a day. So that thought still crosses my mind every once in a while. But nowadays I have a somewhat better relationship with food. I think it's still something that I'll struggle with for the end of time, but I have the tools and I have the confidence and I have the strategies to, eat better or make better choices. I have a better understanding too. This is something that I love about running. It's given me a better understanding or connection to my body and know what it's feeling. Back when I was very overweight and unhealthy, like eating sugar all day, I felt like that had no impact. But now if I have, you know, like a cookie, I can feel that sugar in my system like for hours.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because you're so more aware of what's going on in your body and how your body reacts to food too. But nowadays, I mean, through my weight loss journey, I dabbled with many different diets, but the one that probably has stuck with me the longest is sticking to like a clean paleo diet. So I don't eat a lot of sugar, dairy, grains, beans, legumes. I stick to a lot of just like lean vegan protein or animal protein if there's nothing else available. I'm not too strict about that. Lots of vegetables, but yeah, I just try and eat as many single ingredient foods as possible.
Yeah.
What they always say is to shop around the perimeter of the store. That's usually where I am.
Yeah. All the junk is in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, that's smart. And yeah, you're right. Like I always think like the alcoholic is giving up alcohol entirely. The drug addict, if they're trying to get clean, they're giving up drugs completely and they're learning how to live without it. But yeah, someone who's addicted to food or has problems with managing portions, it's like the alcoholic that has to have only one beer a day or one beer a week, you know? And yeah, it's just a totally different struggle. So I've always wondered how that went. And I'm just curious, do you have like cheat days or anything now, or are you just super, super strict on this path?
I used to be so strict that I wouldn't even allow myself a cheat day. I struggled with a lot of the issues that a lot of female endurance athletes struggle with. I think it's called the female triad, where, you know, if you eat too little, and I did, my lowest weight was around like 152, 153, which I'll look back at pictures and I was a twig. Like it hurt to even like sit on the ground because my tailbone or my, you know, my spine, it would cause bruises on my skin from hitting the ground. Luckily I'm not at that point anymore, but I was eating, you know, way too few calories for what I was outputting, you know, through running and whatnot. But yeah, nowadays I have just a way better relationship with food.
Good. Yeah, well, it sounds like it. And I'm also curious, how long did it take for you to lose that 200 pounds?
I want to say it was like a year and a half. I remember the first 100 went by in probably 6 months, 7 months. And then the other 100 took a little bit longer to lose. But yeah, I think the most I lost was 120 and now I'm sitting at, or 220 and now I'm sitting at about 200.
Okay. Wow. And had you lost all of that before you started the Chicago Marathon, or were you still on you'd lost it all? Okay.
Yeah, I lost it all and then continued to lose until about 2017, like late into 2017. That's where I got to about 152. And since then, I've just been like slowly gaining back to a healthier weight. I've also, surprisingly enough, been lifting, which is almost unheard of for a runner.
No, that's good. That's healthy.
I'm still not stretching. No. But I'll lift some heavy things every once in a while.
Cool.
One thing I don't do now that I used to be a crazy person about is looking at the scale every single morning to see, you know, where we're at that day. I mean, I was so crazy about it. I would weigh myself every morning without even drinking water, just to be like, how low are we right now? But I don't even look at my scale anymore. I just go based on feel. How's my energy? How's my performance running?
Yeah. It sounds like, well, I guess you kind of said it. This is going to be a struggle forever for you, but you have a healthy relationship with it now. You've sort of wrestled with this thing and you've got it. So it's pretty admirable. It's an impressive story. And yeah, it's like, I barely know you, but I'm proud of you, Callie. It's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Then, yes, of course. So then the next year you run Chicago Marathon as a training run for Ice Age 50 miler.
What was it? The Lakefront 50-50 in Chicago.
Okay. I've done the Lakefront 50K.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
It's a
It was a
brutal
long time
time of
ago.
year for that race in
Oh
November.
yeah. No,
Was it
it's
like freezing with 20-mile-per-hour winds?
Oh yeah, it sucked. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on pavement. You guys,
Yeah.
this is not a trail race. This is on pavement.
Yes, literally on a sidewalk along the lakefront, back and forth, back and forth. But when you're a new ultra runner, it's like, sure, I'll do anything. I'll run in circles.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I actually love running in circles.
Really?
Yeah, I've done a handful of circle races. I would say the shortest circle I did was a mile loop around a pond. That was also in Chicago, the Christmas in July races.
How many times?
So I only got to, this is another crazy story. I only got to, I think like 18 miles in because I was having severe, like I couldn't intake anything. I couldn't drink anything. Blood was coming out. I was like, this isn't good. I called it. And on the way home, this race also started at like 10 p.m. So I called my friend at like midnight. I was like, come pick me up. And on the way home, I was like, I need redemption from this. And so the very next weekend, I set out to do the 100 miles that I was going to do the weekend before. Cause I was like, you know what? I'm trained for it. I got to do this. I'm not letting it go. And I also participate in November Project whenever I can. Usually it's not when I'm not training, which is rare, but I told one of my friends, I'm going to do this around Chicago. I'm just going to create my own 100-miler. And she was like, that's awesome. Like, give me your location and I'll like see what I can do to help you. And I left work that day at like Friday. I was in my running gear and I was like, goodbye team. I'm going to go run 100 miles. And my first stop was home because I had to go walk my dog and give him dinner. So my first like 7 miles was to home. Did that. And then I left and told my friend, like, I'm going this way and you should be able to see my location. And by mile, I want to say like 12 or so, she was on the corner on her bike and she was like, hey, I'm gonna like pace you for a little bit. I'm like, that's great, sure, come on. And we get to mile, I want to say 40, or maybe it was 30, 35, somewhere around there. And she was like, all right, well, I have to go, but you see that guy on the corner? That's Randy. He's gonna pace you through the night. And I was just like completely blown away that this stranger I'd never met before, he's also November Project. These are all November Project people. And he's like, hi, I'm going to run with you through the night so you're not alone. And it was insane. We run through the night. This car pulls up. This sweet lady jumps out. And she's also part of November Project. She's like, hi, like I'm your aid station. I heard you're vegan. So I've got some vegetable broth. I've got some like candy, pretzels. What do you need? So during this entire 100 miles, all these people just showed up out of nowhere where I was running to help crew or to help pace or to be an aid station. And they're all part of November Project. And it was amazing. Like I had no idea that my friend was working in the background to coordinate all these people to come help out and just make sure that I do this 100 miles. And it was amazing. I get to the finish, which I made my house, so I didn't have to go very far. And this girl standing outside and she's like, congratulations. I just wanted to hand this to you. And she hands me this wood plaque that has 100 miles on it, Callie, and a number 1, because I had taken the bib from the weekend before, flipped it, and wrote Chicago 100 miler, bib number 1. And she made a replica of that during the day when I was running and handed it to me as like my prize for finishing. And I was just like completely blown away.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That was your first 100?
No, that was, oh God, I don't know what number that was.
Okay.
But
okay. But it was 100 on your own. It's not, I mean, people came out there with you, but you just did it on your own. Now, were you trying to raise money for this November Project?
No, not this time. I didn't even know that November Project was even going to help me out. This was something that I just like told a couple friends I was doing. And my one friend was like secretly in the background coordinating all these people to help put it together.
Wow. That's so cool.
But the charity run that I did most recently was my friend Shan ran across the country. And I crewed him in a van.
No way.
Yeah, this was 2020 from September to December.
Wow, September to December. That's how long it took him?
Yeah, 3 months.
That's not very long. Holy cow.
No, 3 months.
Wow. Okay, and you crewed him the whole time. That must have been pretty awesome.
It was awesome. We went from San Francisco to Connecticut, and we were raising money for Feeding America or Food Share because this was during the pandemic. Food insecurity was just a big problem and still is a problem. And we wanted to do some kind of good during a really shitty year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he had lost his job. He worked in event marketing for the Hartford Marathon Foundation, and they weren't putting on any races. So he lost his job, and that was something he'd always wanted to do. And he told me that he was considering it. And I said, you're not allowed to do this unless I help. And he has a camper van. And so I said, let's use the van. I'll be in the van crewing and you can be running. So.
Wow. Wow. Do you have any thoughts of doing anything crazy like that?
I'm sure I do. I'm sure I do. Give it time.
There's thoughts. There's thoughts.
Yeah. Not right now.
Not yet. Well, you're got Cocodona to worry about right now, like one thing at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
How many hundreds have you done at this point?
Oh, I'm not the person to count or to remember finish times.
Sure. Okay.
I know I've done a handful on my own. I did a couple during, lockdown because I was bored. I got really into Strava art because I live in Chicago. You're on a grid system.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was perfect for, I did phrases. I didn't do like drawing.
Phrases.
So
Okay.
Phrases.
What was the best phrase?
Ooh, I had a couple. My longest one was, on paper, it was 106 miles, but to do good Strava art, there's sections where you have to pause and then like go to another side of that area and then start it. So it draws a direct line if there's not a street there.
Okay.
So I tallied it up. And also during this, I had to like run home, take care of the dog, and then run back before I paused it. So I did that a handful of times. So it ended up being around 135 miles.
Whoa.
But that was also during lockdown and, when people just wanted to like get over it. So the phrase was, "This moment matters."
Nice.
Yeah, that was a fun one. I also did "You're on mute, Karen." Because that was
wow, that's hilarious. It's hilarious that you would take on those projects and they're that long, 130 miles. That's no joke.
I didn't have anything else to do.
Nothing else to do.
Nothing else to do, and I needed to run for sanity. So
yeah. Did you work remotely through the whole pandemic?
I did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to, still have my job, and I still work for the agency in Chicago, and I still worked for them during the run across the country too, in the van or on the side of the van. Okay. So yeah, I was just working from home, and then, when you're done for the day, it's like, well, I'm not hanging out with anyone. So what do I do?
Gotta go do something. Totally.
I gotta do something.
Yeah. Have you been further than 100 miles? Have you done a 200 yet?
I have not done a 200. I have tried to run the Tahoe 200 twice. Oh. And by try, I mean, I was entered into 2020, but it was canceled because of COVID. And then I was in to run last year. Was it last year? Yeah, last year. But it was canceled because of the fires, the Caldor fire that took over like Tahoe area.
That's right.
So I've said, forget it. I'm not running Tahoe, but I have signed up for Moab 240. So I'll be doing that in October.
Oh. There's not like a rollover for Tahoe or anything like that?
No.
That sucks. Okay.
I know.
So you're signed up for Moab and Cocodona this year?
I am.
Oh, dang.
I know.
Anything else? Any other races? I mean, that's enough, but it sounds like you're ambitious, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I'm, around one of the best racing companies, Aravaipa, so I wouldn't be surprised if I, throw in a handful of those races here and there's training runs, especially for Cocodona. Yeah. Something I would love to do before Cocodona is, do rim to rim to rim, but that'll be just a timing thing to see if I have time to do it.
Nice. That's one of my favorite runs. I would highly recommend it.
You've done it?
Yeah, I've done it a couple of times. It's so cool. Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
I just was there, like 2 weeks ago for the first time. I got to see the Grand Canyon, and it hurt. I was there with my mom and my niece, and it took everything I had not to just go like run down Bright Angel Trail. But I couldn't.
You're with your family, yeah.
I was
gotta do the family thing.
I know. I did the Grand Arizona tour. It was Antelope Canyon, Grand Canyon, Flagstaff, Sedona, and then Phoenix.
Nice.
Yeah.
Didn't you just do Black Canyon 100K too?
I did. And
how was that?
I was very nervous about that. I'm not gonna lie, because so Tahoe 200 was canceled. The day I found out it's canceled, I go out for a shakeout run, and I got a stress fracture. So I was in a boot for 3 months until mid-December. Yeah, mid-December. I was in a boot. And then I was at an Aravaipa holiday party for their group runs. And they had a raffle for a couple of different races that you could enter and get a free entry. And I entered Black Canyon as a joke. my name got drawn.
You got in. Nice.
I got
Okay.
in. So I had 7 weeks of training out of a boot to do that race. So that's why I say I was a little nervous, but it went really well. I mean, I treated it as a training run like I should have for Black Canyon. I had my poles the whole time. I had my hydration vest packed solid. I mean, that thing was constantly full of water, even though I didn't really need it until later into the race. But I just wanted to treat it as, you know, a Cocodona training run.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm glad I did. I went really slow. I finished like in the middle of the night. I even told my friend, like, are you sure you want to wait up for me? And he was like, yeah. Because he finished second place. So he waited around for 10 hours.
Okay. Sounds like a nice guy.
Yeah. Great person.
Wow.
But yeah, it was a great race and I didn't injure myself. So all good things.
Nice.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but that's kind of what I'm looking at with Cocodona. So you and I are 9 weeks from Cocodona right now. Did you know that? Yeah, I know. I had it marked on my calendar because I've been injured. You know, I've been injured for 5 months. I probably haven't run. I've got this plantar fasciitis and I've been trying to work it out. I've seen a couple PTs. I think I'm making progress, but yeah, I've got it on my calendar and I'm just like, okay, we're 9 weeks out. I need like 9 weeks to train at a minimum. And you know, am I going to be able to do this with 7 or 8 weeks? And so I'm a little nervous for Coco, but
I know
I'm just staying positive and moving.
Where are you training right now?
I'm in Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, you've got great area to train in.
Oh yeah, fantastic. But I'm injured.
What are you doing for heat? Well, that's true too.
Yeah, so it's like I'm on an indoor bike trainer. I got outside on the bike today. It was a beautiful day. Yeah, my heat training is lacking. I need to get into a sauna. I did Western States a bunch of years ago, and I remember spending like the whole summer driving around with the heat on and the windows up, just like sweating all day long.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've got a little heat training to do. But what about you? How's your training going?
Training's going really well. I mean, Black Canyon was what I really wanted to do, as you know, just something that just, you know, is peace of mind for the race coming up in May. But I took the week off because then my family was in town. So this last week was my first week of like just baby steps into training again. That went well, and so far this week's going well. My strategy is you know, just weightlifting on Mondays. Tuesday and Wednesday are shorter runs. Thursday, very light lifting. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday are my back-to-back-to-back long run days. And so one day I'll do like a longer, sort of flatter run. And then the next day I'll do a longer, you know, bigger climbing day. And then the next day will be like all hiking kind of day. So the person I mentioned before, he's like, let's do like a race camp one weekend or something. Let me help you. Cause he's running Western States this year. So, he's also got to get some big miles in. So I don't know where we're going to go, but we got to get some big weekends in coming up.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you someone who counts weekly mileage and stresses out about stuff like that? No, not at all. Okay.
I'm more of like, just get a big day in, count. I really count like hours on your feet. Yeah. I'll, you know, sort of gauge mileage, but it's not as, you know, it's not something I'm super strict about like I used to be.
Yeah. But Friday night is the start of your big run or the start of your weekend. So on Friday night after work, you'll go out for a big run, catch some miles, and then Saturday and Sunday, the same thing, 3 back-to-backs. Yeah.
And something there was another podcast I listened to specifically about 200-mile training. You know, the biggest topic was sleep. And that's something that if there's anything that I'm worried about during the race, it's sleeping, because I can't take naps. I can't sleep during the day. It takes me forever to fall asleep at night. So I think what I'm going to do, at least a handful of times before the race, is do like a big run Friday night leading into up to like maybe 1 a.m., 2 a.m., sleep for an hour or two, get up, and then do it all day Saturday, and then get like a solid night's sleep Saturday night, and then go out for a big day Sunday. But I really want to do, you know, those minimal sleep Friday, Saturdays, or Saturday, Sundays, just for that peace of mind. It's kind of like, you know, when you're training for your first marathon, the peace of mind is checking those boxes of your Hal Higdon
Right.
plan. Now it's, can I sleep a little bit during a run? We'll see.
Yeah, well, when you're running a 250-mile race, sleep is something to kind of stress about. You're going to have to sleep at some point, and it's like, when am I going to do it? So do you have a strategy coming into this race, like hike 20 hours a day or 60 miles a day? Or, I mean, if you do 50 miles a day, you should be able to get the thing done, right? Because we have 5 days to do it.
5 days.
But do you have a strategy at all, or? I mean, you seem like a very analytical person. Like you know what you're going to do. You know what needs to be done. Are you thinking in those terms for this race?
I'm thinking in those terms as far as nutrition goes, for sure. What I'm going to have at different aid stations as far as like drop bags go. I'm also still on the fence on having crew. That's something I've never had before. It's crew or pacers. I usually like to go lone wolf style. It's just one last thing to have to worry about in a race. I know a lot of people like having it. For me, it's like this mental game where I'm like, God, people are like counting on me to get to this aid station by this time, and I'm gonna like be late. So I like to just think of it as me going out on an adventure, and I'll get there when I get there.
Okay.
But for this, I'm considering actually having crew.
Yeah.
But sleep, that's something that I'm just thinking, like, when you feel tired, then that's when you go to sleep, versus trying to force it into a plan. I think that's something that's just going to come naturally in the race. It is something that I'm going to try and train for during, the weekends leading up to it. But I've been told by a couple people, like, if you feel tired that you can fall asleep right then, go to sleep right then. Like, don't get to an aid station saying you're going to sleep, and if you can't sleep, be, sad or disappointed about it. Just sleep when you feel like it. Hopefully that's at an aid station, but if it's not,
trail naps are welcome. Trail naps are cool.
They're gonna happen. But
what's your food strategy?
I'm still noodling on that. I've been going back and forth from a very low carb diet to just like a regular runner's diet. And I'm thinking, just because I know what kind of food is at Aravaipa aid stations, and I'm going to depend on that probably quite a bit, is to just do more of like a higher carb diet. But food, I want to stick to solid stuff. I've never been a goo person. I've never been, anything like that. I will do bars from time to time, though my preference are RX bars, just because they're so limited ingredient.
Yeah.
And I do carry those constantly with me on training runs. I love them. But yeah, I think I'm just going to stick to whole foods that I know work for me, just veering away from dairy, veering away from sugars, trying to fit I know there's never vegetables at an aid station, but if I can get some in, that would be great.
Yeah.
Just because I know they make me feel good. If anything, it's just a placebo effect. But yeah, we'll see. I'm still noodling on the, the minutia, the smaller details in there, but it'll happen.
So the longest you've been so far is 100 miles?
100 miles in a race, and then the 135, the Strava art.
135, that's right. Okay. Okay. So yeah, this is kind of new. Who knows how it's going to shake out? I mean, I'm kind of sitting in the same boat.
I know.
Are you nervous about the first 50 kilometers? Last year, that was all the talk of the race.
I know. And I saw there's a group training run, I think it's April 1st or April 2nd, where they're going to do that. They're going to do the first 50K. And I don't want to miss that because I keep hearing about that section. And I did read the runner's manual just yesterday, actually. And it did talk about the aid stations and how that one section where, how many miles apart? It's like 20 miles. No, I won't say it's farther. No, it's 20 miles. It's from mile 11 to like mile 30. My dog.
33. Yeah.
33.
Yeah.
A whole stretch without any aid, but I think they're trying to get a water drop in there. Otherwise, yeah, what do you have? It's like mandatory that you have to have 4 liters on you going through that section.
Easy, right?
Yeah, it's fine. I feel like I was carrying 4 liters with me at Black Canyon with how heavy my pack was. I gave Scott, I was like, I took it off at the end of Black Canyon. I was like, just see how heavy it is. And he was just like, you were carrying this the whole time?
Wow.
I rucked. Black Canyon.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds like it. That's perfect. I mean, that's perfect Cocodona training.
I
You're gonna be doing
know.
a lot of hiking with poles, carrying heavy stuff, and then we're
Exactly.
gonna have a bunch of water with us. Yeah,
Yeah. I was actually thinking of going to the Army surplus store soon and picking up a, a weighted vest just for that,
just for
just
training.
just for training. Because
Yeah,
oh man, when you're done with a 100 miler and you take your vest off, I get so sore right here.
yeah,
Just, yeah,
yeah.
but we'll see.
Is it pretty hot in Arizona where you are right now? Are you getting good heat training?
Today it was like a good 84, 85.
Okay, nice.
So it's starting to get up there.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times I run early mornings and I hike in the afternoon, sunset time, but I need to start forcing myself to go out at like noon.
In the heat of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that'll definitely happen, on weekends when you're out past noon, but yeah, just getting used to long exposure in the sun.
Yeah, no kidding. So Cocodona 250, are you even thinking about Moab 240 at this point, or are you just thinking of the one race ahead of you at this point?
Uh, I think I'm just thinking about Cocodona, but I keep seeing little updates about Moab and I'll get excited and I'm just like, hold on, slow your roll. Like let's just worry about this first, monster now. We can tackle the next one later.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for Moab. I got to volunteer last year and just being there and in the environment. And I volunteered at the Tahoe 200 in 2019, and it's just so exciting being around those 200 events because you know what they're going through. I mean, you kind of know, but we'll find out for sure in 2 months. But the energy and just knowing that you're going out on this multi-day adventure, just I'm so excited for.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
What about the future? Do you have plans for next year or 5 years down the road? Are you going to keep growing this thing? Or, what are your plans?
There's so many bucket list races that I want to do. One of my big goals is to do Badwater. I'll be there this year crewing Pete. I helped him when he was here for Desert Solstice this year, and then a little bit across the years. But yeah, he got picked for Badwater, so I'm excited to go crew and get an experience and a real feel of the race, so that later I can one day submit and hopefully get picked to run that race. But 2023, I have no idea what's in store. I like to say I'm a live in the moment kind of person, but I'm so type A and I love to plan and for the future. So
for sure. Yeah.
We'll see what's ahead next year, but nowadays I'm just kind of living by the moment, sort of.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
You must like the heat though.
I love the heat.
Really? You do well?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think born and raised Florida, it came naturally coming here, except I love it because there's no humidity.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you do in the cold?
I don't do well.
Okay.
Don't do well at all.
Yeah.
I want to say, because I lived in Chicago for not 20 years, 10 years. Yeah. And if it were below 40 degrees, I would complain the whole time. Where I would hear people say like, that's not that bad, but it's bad. I told one of my friends, they were like, let's go for a run together. I was like, it's 20 degrees. I don't really want to go. And they're like, come on. And I was like, all right, but you're going to hear me cuss from start to finish. And they did. Yeah, I can't. As soon as like my shoulders and my back gets cold, I'm done. I'm out.
Done. That's it. But you'll take the hottest ultra marathons in the world over mountains, over deserts, but not a run under 40 degrees.
No. So what was it, like 2 weeks before I moved here? It just happened to be, I think it was -12, but like -20, 21 with the wind chill. Whoa. And I had 25 miles on deck that day. And my first thought was like treadmill run, but I was like, you know what? No, this is the last time I have to do this, and then I'm moving to Arizona. So I did the miles outside, and I have a picture where I'm just covered in icicles, like just covered. And I was like, I'll never have to do that again. And I still will never do that again.
One and done.
Yeah, I love the heat. Last year there was an unsanctioned race one of our friends put on here at South Mountain. It's called the Circle of Hell race, and it's always done in the middle of July. And this year they said it was tame because it was only like 110. But it's a few hour race around a 1 mile path on the mountain. And I was third place female.
Nice.
'Cause I loved
Nice.
it.
So you're getting faster too. I
Slightly.
mean, after you lost all this weight, you started running. Do you feel like your fitness is still getting better? Like when you look at your times, are the times dropping down still?
I don't think the times are dropping. I think it's just that I'm able to go farther and for longer. I think that's where my fitness is improving. But time-wise, I think I'm still in the same camp. I don't think I'd be able to PR my marathon anytime soon, though. But if you were to tell me train for a 250-mile race, I could do that. So we'll see what's next after 250. I don't know. I might be like, hell no, I'm never doing an ultra marathon again afterwards. Or I might be like, what's 500 like? I don't know. We'll see.
Do you do anything else? Do you bike or climb or anything else?
I do bike. A lot of the times I'll use my bike just as like, no impact cardio if I just want to like cruise around, ride around.
Yep.
I've always wanted to rollerblade, but I have yet to pick that up. But since I moved here, like I'm such a baby when it comes to heights. I have a pretty severe fear of heights.
Okay.
But being out here, I've decided that I have to conquer it. So I try and do the toughest climbs that I possibly can out here. I've done Flatiron many times. I've done this other mountain called Picacho, where you have to have gloves for the cables because it's so steep and slick, and done that a few times. And I'll have, panic attacks, but I'm like, you can do this. This is fine.
Wow.
And, just keep pressing on. So I've gotten into climbing, not to the point where now I'm like mountaineering, but I have gotten into more scrambling than I'm used to.
Cool.
Just because I want to conquer that fear.
Yeah, you're just like facing your fears one by one, just knocking demons down. I love it. Yeah, why not? So you're a writer as well. Have you ever thought about putting your story down on paper, like writing a book or a screenplay or anything like that? Have you ever thought about it?
Yes, I'm actually in the beginning stages of writing my book. I talked to Christopher McDougall because he's about to come out with his next book, and I'll be in it.
Really? What's his next book?
Born to Run 2.
No way. And you're going to be in it?
Yes.
So how did that go? Did he, as a journalist, come follow you around or interview you, or what was that like?
He found me, I think he said he found me through a friend on Instagram and, asked if we could set up an interview and chit chat. And, we had a conversation on the phone, and about 30 minutes in, he told me, like, you have to write your own book. You know this, right?
Yeah.
And he said, when you do, tell me, and I'll point you I'll point you towards the right people to contact.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, that's a 2022 goal now.
Yes.
I heard it from you.
Well, you've given me two things to be excited about. I didn't know there was a Born to Run 2 coming out. That's pretty badass. And you're going to be in it. I love that. When's it coming out?
I think October, maybe. Okay. That was the last I heard. Might be later. We'll see.
Okay, cool. And do you have any ideas with your own story? Like, I'm guessing if you're a writer, you must be a reader as well. I am as well. I love literature. Is there any books you look at, like maybe that can be my template and I'll try and tell my story that way? Or have you even thought that far?
I haven't thought that far yet. Right now, I'm just kind of getting the outline out there as far as just like all the things I could possibly tell before I start carving, the sculpture and into what it will be later. Yeah. But yeah, right now, my dog's whining at me. Right now, it's just a matter of getting every possible like story or idea or angle I could possibly get out there, because I don't want it to be just another girl's story. I want it to have purpose, or I want it to hopefully impact someone else who might be going through something that I went through, or, might be struggling with weight or struggling with their family or whatever. So I want it to be a tool. I'm still figuring out how it can be a tool, but I want that to be the goal.
Cool. I love it. Write the book, come back on the show. We'll promote it. We'll do whatever we can, but I am excited. Yeah, it's so cool. And I guess I'm going to be seeing you in 9 weeks, and I'm either going to be running it or crewing it. Maybe I'll just be there cheering for you one way or another. It's going to be a party out in the desert, and I can't wait for it. So,
oh my God, I'm so excited.
Me too. Me too. Well, Callie, what a story you have. Yeah. And I think that you should write it down for sure, because you're going to be able to help people. You know, it's an inspiring story. It's going to help people. There are other people that are in your shoes just, 10 years ago, and they're wondering how to get to your version now. So yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. Keep inspiring people. And God, I love the story. I love a transformation story. So
awesome.
Callie, so cool. I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, no problem. It's been great being on here and talking with you.
Cool. You ever come to Colorado, look me up. I'll take you on some trails.
I'll be there this summer, actually.
Ah, hell yeah. Cool. Well, looking forward to it. Look me up.
All right.
All right. We'll talk soon.
All right.
All right. We'll see you.
Bye.